We are live, Becs.
Woo! How exciting!
And it's Friday. So I'm hoping this time, because last time I went live with Peeps, with Karen, in fact, we couldn't see anybody live, and we thought we were on our own, and actually it turned out we had half a dozen people with us and putting comments in at the time, but it wasn't coming up. I've adjusted a setting on my Facebook that I think may have fixed that, and I can see a little eye in the corner that says whether there's people live or not now, so hopefully we'll get some people joining us soon.
Cool.
So folks, those of you who are we've got two people. Those of you who are live now, welcome. Those of you who are watching on replay, this is my wonderful friend Becs McNeill, who I have now known for, how long have we known each other now? It's less than a year, isn't it?
It's probably longer than you think, because I think we met through Caroline, didn't we? We met at the singing thing. Do you remember that?
Of course we did. I forgot all about that. Yeah, we met through Caroline Kelf at the singing workshop. That was so cool. Hi, Dave. Yes, of course. I forgot all about that link. Yeah. That was so good, that workshop.
It was good fun.
Really good.
Good fun.
So I'm going to read you a bio about Becs, because I think it encapsulates her perfectly. So Becs is a midlife Pisces, multi-potentialite, open for magic and adventure, a fuck it practitioner, which was the thing I was trying to remember the other day and I couldn't quite remember what it was, which is just silly. Supporting coaches is one of the things she does amazingly well. She supported me hugely. She's very creative when it comes to sort of creating courses and other learning resources, and helps to transform subject experts and coaches and course creators also, so that they are able to teach what they love and turn all of that into recurring revenue by creating and growing thriving online memberships and programs.
Yay!
And Bex's set of skills in that arena, and in fact many arenas, is amazing. And I remember one of the first things we talked about, hi Sharon, hi Paul, was that you have this ability to connect people really beautifully.
Yeah, I didn't realise that other people didn't do that. It just seemed to be something. I know it's those things that when you find your little zones of genius and you just take it for granted that everybody else does that, and then you realise that that's not obvious to everybody else. But that became really obvious to me a couple of years back, because I did my human design profile.
Yes, we talked about that a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, I've always been into finding out about personality stuff and working out what people are like. You know, I'm into sort of psychology and personality profiling and all that kind of stuff. And I found out I'm an opportunist role model, and I was kind of like, right, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I'm like that kid out of the film Sixth Sense, but instead of seeing dead people, I see opportunity everywhere.
Much more fun than dead people.
Yeah, I would much rather see opportunity than dead people lurking around. But I was like, I could see how that. I was like, you need to talk to you, and you need to talk to you, and that can work, and this, that, and the other. And people were like, really? I was like, yeah, it's really obvious. But obviously, it wasn't obvious. So yeah,
I think it's a like you say, zone of genius. For me, it's like a magic ability. I think you do that and you see. I think you see why you're connecting people. You can almost see it in the future. See, I found that I can connect people too, but I don't know why I'm doing it usually.
Right.
I just know, like, I'll meet a new person and I'll go, I need to connect you with that person. And I don't know what will come from it or what the reason will be, but I know I need to connect you. And that happens to me all the time now. And the more I become aware of it, the more it sort of becomes more powerful.
I think it's really important just to, and I think in the line of work that I work in, it's been really valuable because I just build relationships with people because I know at some point there's a reason for it. It's probably not for me, so I kind of let go of that outcome, and I'm not worried. I'm not like, I'm speaking to you, there's a connection here, but it may not be that I'm going to be working with you or you're going to be working with me or whatever. but there's a reason why we need to have these conversations and stay in touch. And quite often it's because it's for somebody else. So I tend to be less, not salesy, but I tend to just sort of naturally pull people together, I suppose.
Yeah. And I think that's, I really like what you said about detaching from the outcome, because, you know, I think that building relationships thing is so important. If you're not constantly thinking, oh, well, the reason I need to build a good rapport or relationship or connection with this person is so that I could possibly sell them something in the future. If you let go of all of that, all of a sudden life becomes so much more enriching, doesn't it, for everybody?
It really does.
I've just actually finished doing a coaching session with a client, and she said, oh, I met this person that you both know. And in fact, both of them are in the Rebels group. She, you know, just came across this lady and realized that we knew each other. And I just get this immense sense of joy when I know people who just connect and, you know, somehow find each other, or that I've been able to connect and something amazing comes from it. I just get so much joy from that. It's worth so much more than money.
Yeah. They're seeing those collaborations. I mean, there's been some happening in the membership group, and that's really lovely, because it's like, oh, I feel like a proud mama when that happens, because I'm like, oh, look what you're doing. That's incredible. Well done. But the other part of my human design is that I respond. You're the same, aren't you? So yeah. I know that all of my opportunities and all of my juice comes from within my network. So I'm like, okay, so where's this going to take me? I'm completely open to whatever's going to happen. And I've always been a bit like that, really. I suppose it's that kind of, I've got that gypsy heart, a bit of a traveler at heart. And it's like, okay, where's this adventure going to take us? And where's this conversation going to lead us? So you just literally, if you go into something thinking you want it to take it in that direction, you could miss out on so much by not allowing it to unfold by itself. And that's one of the things that I love doing. I'm like, come on then, let's see where this goes, as opposed to going, right, we're going from A to B and we're just going to go linear. Let's go the scenic route instead.
Yeah, I love that being open to seeing what happens is really, that's created magic for me in the last few months, rather than trying to force stuff. Tell us more about human design then. So there'll be probably a number of people listening who might be familiar with it, but probably a number who certainly aren't familiar with it. So tell us what you're...
Okay, so I'm not in any way, shape or form a practitioner. Don't hold me to that. I'm just interested in it. Yeah, and the other disclaimer is don't go looking too far and too deep into it, because you will go down a rabbit hole and never come back out again.
Yeah.
It's basically, it's kind of an astrology I Ching mix kind of thing. So it's based on your birthplace, birth date, name, and that kind of stuff. But it basically looks at your personality, and it also looks at your design, so what you're designed to do. And it's made a lot of sense to me. I mean, I've done lots of stuff, you know, I've done my Enneagrams, I know what my personality profiles are and all of that kind of jazz. I love all of that kind of stuff. But this one kind of made a lot more sense than some of the others. So it was just more of a case of it guides you as to how you make your decisions. And I'm an emotional authority, so it means I make my decisions based on my mood. So how am I feeling? Is that no, not feeling that. So it's either yes, I'm definitely in it. And I used to sort of think I was a bit like flaky because of that. And people were like, oh, you know, you shouldn't make decisions based on your emotions. Well, actually, turns out I should.
My emotions now.
Yeah. So it kind of gives you, when you've got that level of self-awareness to a certain extent, it gives you that permission. I know you were talking about that permission culture in a couple of interviews ago, but there's a lot of that I think people feel like they can't do stuff because they shouldn't. And that's one of the things that I like to do, is kind of give people permission to do whatever the hell they want, because there shouldn't be any rules as far as I'm concerned.
This is why I was so glad your name came out of the fishbowl, because I know you totally get this ethos. I found human design really interesting because you introduced me to it. And, you know, I'm not a big sort of, I don't hold much faith in astrology.
Mm-hmm.
Partly because I found out years ago that there should be 13 star signs and not 12, but we just miss, we took one.
And they keep pulling other ones out the bag as well, don't they?
Yeah. And you're like, okay, really? But there's something about human design that really clicked for me. And Paul Harris is saying human design is cool. Check out Gene Keys too, very similar to human design. Me and Paul have had conversations around Gene Keys. That is fascinating stuff, and it is very, very similar. And again, same sort of effect of if you're not careful, you go down a massive rabbit hole.
Yeah.
When you understand some of the key principles about it, actually, all of a sudden, the way you act in life makes sense.
Yeah. And it's not, I mean, I'm not one of these people that will completely live my life by something. It's just kind of another piece of the jigsaw to go, oh, right, okay, that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. And that's what I do for a lot of people, is help them make sense of things, especially when there's overwhelm and chaos. And, that tends to be a lot of the work that I do. I tend to thrive in the chaos because I can connect those dots, and because I can kind of see that bigger picture. I can go, whoa, it's okay, calm down. Let's look at it from this perspective.
Of, I've had moments that you've been incredibly helpful with, where I've been in the darkness and the confusion and the overwhelm. Percy, stop digging the bed. Thank you. And you have had this ability to cut through the shit and give me this clarity, or help me reach this clarity moment that has been, pretty transformative at that point in my life. And that is an incredible skill. I think one of the things that, the biggest things that I found from that and the human design thing combined is that to know that I am a responder and not a forcer has been incredibly helpful, because I now understand why things don't work when I try and hold them by the throat and force them and push them, or people, when I try and push people.
Yeah, that doesn't work when you hold them by the throat and push them, Emma. That's not going to work.
That, do they? And I don't know why. Gene Keys, any relation to Milton? Gene Keys.
Milton Keynes? Keys, not Keynes.
Right. She's put laughing emojis after it, so I knew it, but I couldn't quite work out what it was. No, you're right, Jill. No, absolutely correct. Not any relation to Milton Keys.
Or Gene Kelly.
Yes.
Although
what were you going to say? Sorry that I
can't remember now. About the sort of cutting through the crap thing.
Yes.
I think I've got a very low tolerance for bullshit, and that's always been very helpful. And it kind of goes back to childhood and kind of how I got to where I am, I suppose, because I became a fuck it practitioner at a very young age. I was about 15. So
a particular moment that you
felt. Oh yeah. It's there's all sorts. How long have you got? So like, settle down, people. Get comfortable.
Meeting with Paul after.
Okay. So basically, I had my first experience of mortality at about 7. So that was a real eye opener for a 7-year-old kid to kind of see somebody that they knew and loved suddenly just kind of waste away through illness. We then had another incident when I was about 10, where my uncle was in an accident on one of the boats on the Thames, the party boats. And that basically kind of blew a big hole in my dad's family. And then when I was 15, my dad died in an accident at work. So he went to work in the morning and never came home. And I think it was at that point then that I kind of really was like, most things I can kind of cope with. I can't deal or can't sort of change or do anything with sort of terminal or serious illness, or death. But pretty much everything else is, you can overcome it, you can change it, you can deal with it. And that tends to be the bar that I've set over the years, is like, what's the worst that can happen? If nobody's going to die, then it's fine. We can deal with it. And I think that has put a real level in, so that when people come to me with some bullshit stories, I just don't tolerate it because I'm like, it's rubbish. Why are you letting that stop you from doing amazing things? Life is too short, it's too precious, and you need to get on and enjoy it and live it to the full.
That's absolutely spot on. I think that the word there that resonates with me is stories, because we all tell ourselves stories, don't we? And they are the biggest things that stop us. I think that's one of the sort of background kind of foundation stones of this community, that we are held back by our own stories, our bullshit that we tell ourselves. And I'm getting to the point now where I'm like mentioning Paul in every single conversation that I have with people on these lives now, but I'm going to have to do it again, because Paul Harris said to me a long time ago, and it massively stuck with me, that unless it's endgame or what he would call checkmate, you're all right. You're still in the game, you know. And I think when you've had the kinds of experiences that you're describing there, it suddenly makes everything so much clearer, doesn't it? And sort of, right, well, yeah, shit happens, but I'm still in the game. I'm still here. And that in itself is something huge to be grateful for.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. Everything happens for a reason, even the shit stuff, because actually there is some real learning, some knowledge, some gifts in amongst it all. Sometimes it's really difficult to see it, especially when you're in amongst it. And sometimes you'll never really truly understand some of that shit that happens. But there's learning in there, and, you know, these things shape us and make us who we are. And I think don't get me wrong, I wish, you know, lots of the things that happened over the years and, you know, hadn't happened, but they are part and parcel of who I've become over the years, and why actually I've been able to help quite a lot of people through that. Through those experiences, I've then been able to help others. And whether that was initially, I wasn't necessarily consciously knowing that I was doing that, but it's become more obvious as I've become more aware of myself and aware of my gifts and got agency over my magic and that kind of stuff as the years have gone on. So
I love that.
Yeah, I'm very, very much a case of, you know, it's either, like you say, game over, or what's the worst that can happen.
Yeah. I think sometimes I think when in the kinds of businesses you and I are in, what I've come to realize is that the struggles I've had to make my business, you know, to really get it off the ground and to do what I really want to do, which is to help people, you know, be better and enjoy life more and be who they are. The struggles I've had to get there, or get to where I am now, and will continue to struggle with, I'm sure, those struggles aren't just for me, they're for other people as well. Because if it had been super easy for me to do what I'm doing, how on earth would I be able to help other people when they go through struggles? So I'd have no frame of reference.
Because we always learn things, or we learn the biggest lessons the hardest way. You know, this is the difficulty that I have to sort of balance with bringing the kids up, is that you have to let them make some mistakes sometimes, and sometimes they're going to be big fuck off mistakes, but most of the time we can deal with it. So make some mistakes, because that's how you learn.
Yeah. And how does that sort of manifest itself practically, parenting wise, then, for you? What, you know, how do you actually do that? You know,
Okay.
but how does it actually happen?
It's funny, actually, because my hubby and I, we're quite different in lots of ways. We're very similar but very different. He's come from a very traditional family. They do things quite traditionally. They will do things that you would kind of expect. And then I've come from this dysfunction over the years. So I think to them, I'm almost a bit like that little ticking time bomb, and they're not quite sure how to handle me sometimes, and they just sort of move me on. So I think actually, though, as a partnership, we've been really, really good, because we're kind of doing that, giving the kids, he helps to give the kids roots, and I help to give the kids wings. So we're in this funny situation at the minute with Lily, with her GCSEs. And she's, bless her, she's so clever, but she doesn't believe in herself because she's 15. She doesn't realise how clever she is. So we're going through all that anxiety and GCSEs and all the disruption that we've had. And on the one hand, there's kind of Paul and his family and the traditional expectations of school and college and university, and then mortgages and children and all that kind of stuff. And then there's me going, you don't have to do any of that. You don't want to.
But he's like,
yeah. He's going, shut up. I'm like, no, seriously. I was like, you can do whatever you want. And she was like, I don't think I'll have kids. I was like, no, don't have kids. Go travel the world. Go and change things. Go and do amazing things. So I think it's really difficult, but also it makes it a lot easier because I can see that what she's worrying about is really not important. I'm like, this isn't going to define you. It's really not important. She doesn't know that because she's 15 and she's in the middle of it. It's going to take her a while to understand and get to know that. But yeah, I'm kind of almost not giving them anything to rebel against.
You know what? I really admire that. I talk to people a lot about, this is going to sound really silly, but I don't care. So I am a massive fan of Will and Jada Pinkett Smith and how they parent their kids. Yeah. So I watch a lot of Jada's Red Table Talk things, and they often have conversations about how they parent, and they've very much brought their kids up to believe that they don't own their kids. They are their own person, and they make their own decisions, and they learn from their own consequences. And whilst they'll always be there for them, they don't tell them what to do and all of that kind of stuff. There was a thing around, do you remember when Willow did the whip your hair round thing?
Oh yeah.
And that went massive, and Will was trying to sort of get her into this pop career, and there was one point where I think she's meant to go on tour or something like that, and she just said, I'm not going to do it. I hate it. I hate this business that I'm in now. And she was only young. She said, no, I'm not going to do it. And Will was like, we're going to let so many people down. We'll lose so much money. We'll break our contract. And she's like, no, not going to do it. And Good. They were like, well, we've created this, so we've got to live up to it now.
Yeah.
Do it. And she just
quit.
I think,
and that's such a brilliant message, I think, to give to people, because I mean, that's another one of the reasons why I work for myself, was because I got to the stage where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I mean, I get bored easily. I think that's kind of the creative part of me that gets a bit like, if things are very mundane and boring, I get kind of lost in the domesticity and domestic bliss sometimes. And I get bored, and I have to just throw things up in the air every now and again. And people are like, what are you doing? And I'm like, but I'm bored. We need to do something here. We need to put a rocket up it. But being stuck somewhere where your soul is slowly dying or being expected to do things, I can't tolerate that. And I don't think anybody should. I mean, even if you've said you're going to do something, it's almost a bit like that wedding situation where somebody's like walking down the aisle and they're still feeling like, should I do this? Until you actually do it, it's okay to say no. Do you know what I mean? It's never too late to be able to back out.
Money on the catering and the flowers and the blah blah blah. Everyone's waiting.
Bollocks to it. Yeah. And I think I often sort of cite, Sliding Doors, that dodgy 90s movie, because life is very much like that. It's like, and purely, again, it goes back to like my dad. He would not have had the accident that he had at work if he'd have clocked off when he should have done, and he stayed to finish off the job and do it properly. And then that's when the accident happened. I'm like, you can make a decision and your life will change within an instant, for the better, for the worse. It could be anything, you don't know. It's just an illusion that we're all in control of our life. You're not in control of what's going on.
God, go on.
Exactly. You are only in control of how you respond. So it's, putting yourself in the best position to be able to deal with that shit, because it's going to come at some point.
Yeah.
There will be stuff.
Right. I'm going to pick this topic back up in a moment, because I think it's a really good one. People are loving we learn the biggest lessons the hardest way. We had a couple of comments about that. Jill's also asking, what's whip your hair around? I think it should be, because I'd said it wrong. I think it's whip your hair back and forth. It was a single, Jill, that Willow Smith released like years and years ago, and she was only young. And it was like, it just went massive. It went absolutely massive, but she was only a kid. And she realized that sort of instinctively and ethically, she didn't want to be in this business. So she had just quit. So yeah, go check it out on Spotify, whip your hair back and forth, and it just went crazy. Anyway, there you go, some clarification. So let's talk about this uncertainty thing, because I think that's really an interesting topic. So the illusion of certainty that we have, and again, Jill will recognize this, because this is something we talk about on the Elite Mentorship Forum with Peter Sage. The illusion of uncertainty. This is something I'm massively learning. Entrepreneurs, the best entrepreneurs, know that life is full of uncertainty, and the better you get at dealing with that, the better your entrepreneurial spirit becomes, and the better your life becomes. So we all think we've got, as you said, you know, this illusion of control over what we do in our lives, and really it's bullshit, isn't it? Because one thing could happen. So how do you personally kind of navigate that then, knowing that you can make lots of decisions based on the information you've got, but ultimately it might mean nothing?
I suppose you just, and again, I will make my decisions based on my emotion at the time. So again, a bit like the Willow thing, is that I'm getting to the point now where I might say that I'm going to do something, because when I've agreed to do it, I'm in the mood for it, and I'm like, yeah, that's great, that's brilliant. When it actually comes to the time, I might be in a completely different place, and that might not suit me then. So it's still okay for me to say no. So learning to say no is some
permission to do that.
Yeah. It's still not easy. I'm getting better at it, but that's something that I'm still learning. And also giving and just saying no, and that being enough, not needing to give a reason why it's a no. So change has never really fazed me. And I said, like before, I think I kind of thrive in that chaos and that environment. And because I work in because of working with marketing and working in the online space, things are changing constantly. So you can do something today and it doesn't necessarily mean, and it'll work, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work again if you do it tomorrow. So it's constantly trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. And I think that's been such a constant in my life from an early age, that things are not constant. The only constant is change. That it just doesn't seem to faze me. And I think that's, again, another reason why people sort of come to me and want to work with me, is because they're either going through something where they're launching or starting up or growing. And I'm like, yes, come on then, let's do it. And they're like, but I'm scared. And I'm like, what's the worst that could happen? Let's just go and play and see what happens. And sometimes it's magic, sometimes it doesn't work. And sometimes there's reasons why it doesn't work, and we can get to the bottom of it. Other times just let it go, move on. So I think if you can get into the fact of it's all a bit of a game, really.
And it's a bit of an adventure and a bit of experimentation, and nothing's you never get everything perfectly right, and if you do, it's only for a short amount of time, isn't it, really?
Yeah. So you've got to make the most of what comes when it comes, because it may not be here tomorrow.
Yeah, so right. That you talked about the being scared thing. So, and you also referenced zone of genius earlier. So one thing when I start with a client, I actually either recommend, or depending on what program they're on, will actually send them a book called The Big Leap. So that zone of genius is something that he talks about, isn't it? And what I've learned about the zone of genius is that it is scary. So often if you're scared, that's an indication, and an excited scared, that's an indication you are about to enter into your zone of genius, or you are in it.
Nice.
And that's something I think you manage with people really well.
But people, I think the thing is they don't recognize their own genius in the first instance. So that's the first step, is making them recognize how brilliant they are. Then slowly they start to believe it. Once they recognize it, then they can start to believe it. because there's so many of us that are, or so many who have been in a position where they're just working in their zone of brilliance because it pays the bills and that's what we need to do because we've got a mortgage, we've got kids, we've got all of this kind of stuff. You know, and I've been there, and I was employed and I did a very good job, but I gave all that up it very spontaneously and just left with no job to go to. Just had a
practitioner
again, yeah, exactly, again. And Paul was just like, oh my God, what's she doing now? Because it's like we literally halved our income overnight, had got a small child and a big mortgage because we'd just moved, and I was like, oh, we'll be fine.
Oh, well.
I'll get another job. And then I found out I'm pregnant with Joe.
Oh God.
I was like, okay, so that changes things slightly. But literally it was just a case of when you're scared and excited, the physiology in your body is exactly the same. It's your brain that's telling you whether it's scary or whether it's an exciting adventure. And it's that kind of nervous feeling and excitement like you get as a kid on Christmas morning is also that kind of adrenaline that you get when something means something to you, so that you then actually perform.
Yeah,
you can't live in that constant state, it's not healthy for you, but you can use that, and if you can channel that, it just means that you can kind of hopefully ride the wave as opposed to get wiped out by it.
It's using these forces, isn't it, for motivation rather than stopping you in your tracks. That I've learned that with fear in general, that it can, if you channel it right, like you've said, you can really use that as a motivating forward moving force.
Yeah. And knowing you and how you work and operate in various different situations. So I know I need a certain amount of pressure to do some things, but I don't do my best under pressure because it stops my creativity. I'm much better if I'm relaxed and I'm enjoying myself and having fun. That's when the creativity comes. If I'm up against a pressure deadline, that's out the window.
Yeah, I think you and I are very similar in lots of ways like that. Zoe Thompson saying Love the Big Leap is a great book. It is, isn't it, Zoe? It's absolutely superb. I would recommend it to anybody who's feeling stuck or wanting to make a change, or really sort of trying to figure out what their zone of genius is. Jill said learning to say no is one of the hardest things to do. If you were created into a people please, if you were created as a people pleaser, constancy equals certainty. Sorry, I'm struggling today. And actually, Rippers and I keep talking about, we're going to do this masterclass at some point about the art of saying no, because it's an incredible skill to learn. Are you good at saying no?
I can be. It really depends on the situation. There'll be times when it's like, this is a hell no. And I'm quite happy then. If I feel something really strongly, if I'm kind of on the fence, I'm a bit like, yeah, we'll see how it pans out. It's really difficult to people please. I think, again, because of everything that happened or that has happened throughout my life, I'm very aware of consequences. And I think it's kind of like, okay, so if I say no to this, what happens? And if I say yes to this, what happens? Because when you're saying no to one thing, you're saying yes to something else. And putting other people first has always been something that I've done. Yeah. So starting to do that and do it differently and put me first feels quite unnatural, but I'm happy to keep exploring and keep doing that because I know that that's something that I need to do. It doesn't come easy. And I admire anybody who can say no and that be a full stop. No need to give any explanation. No is a full sentence. Anyone that can do that, I'm like, yes, you're a god. Well done.
Well, Rippers is good at that. We'll definitely get her in that. And I know she's had to learn that as well. It's always a work in progress for me. I always find myself trying to justify it and going, well, I'd like to think is, and you just tie yourself in knots then, don't you?
Yeah. I think it was a lot easier for me to do it when I was young, free and single. It's a lot harder to do it, I think, when you've got other people that are relying on you. Yeah. I
almost find it hard because I'm free and single. Like, it's sort of, I suppose I have a story in my head that people might be thinking of me, well, you can do as you please, so you must have more time on your hands than other people, or you know, you're being selfish if you, do you know what I mean? Those kinds of stories I tell in my head, which is ridiculous because I don't have any evidence for that at all when I think about it.
Yeah, I think it definitely depends on circumstances and who it is. It's easier with some people than it is with.
Oh, we're losing you a little bit. I think you've frozen now.
Oh, am I back?
Oh,
that's because the kids are back and tapping into the Wi-Fi.
Sucking all the juice out the pipes.
Damn those children.
So to speak. Tell us a little bit about your business then, Becs, because it's only right and fair that we do that because we keep alluding to it, and it's a really, really interesting business, I think.
Yeah, it's moved and changed and evolved so much. And you say my business, I don't really classify myself as having a business. I am self-employed. So once upon a time, I was employed in various ways, originally in the travel industry. Again, that was because of my little adventurer in me. It used to satisfy that quite nicely. But I then started work. That's what happened. I got bored and decided that I was going to leave that job. And I went traveling across the States on my own for a while because I was just like, I'm bored. I'm going to go and do something different. When I came back, I was working in a very then corporate environment, which I was kind of like complete fish out of water, but kind of put my little sprinkle of magic on what I was doing, and they loved it. But after having Lily, went back to work. Things were just not right. I had changed massively. My priorities had changed. And I was like, do you know what? This really doesn't suit me anymore. There's some stuff going on here where they were trying to pressurize me to come back full time. I didn't want to work full time. And they were like, you can't manage your team if you're part-time. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Don't believe in that. And then it's like, oh, if we agree it's for you, we'll have to agree it for everybody. And I'm like, that's bullshit. I don't agree with that. Yeah, there was all this crap going on. I was like, I haven't got time for this shit. Bye. And left. And so then found out I was pregnant with Joe. And so Paul was then going, oh my God, 2 children. And I was like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And I actually started working for myself by accident. So what I did in corporate was opportunity-based. So I was looking at developing new niche businesses and setting up opportunities for our corporate sales team. So I was basically spotting opportunity and delivering it to the people that needed it within the organization. So I was like, right, we could go and set up over here because there's the market for it. There's the this, that, and the other. So I was like, why don't I do that? But for other people, I could do that for everyone, because when I was actually working, I was tied down to only giving the opportunities that suited us, whereas I could see other connections. Again, you were saying, you know, connecting the dots and saying, right, you need to talk to you, but I can't tell you that because I work over here. So I started doing it for a friend of mine who'd set up her business because she'd been made redundant. And I then just started working for small businesses, helping them in terms of business development and stuff like that. Then I got sort of more involved in working online and using social media sites and that kind of stuff for prospecting, finding new business opportunities, all of that kind of stuff. And it's kind of just kept evolving. And I've ended up coaching people and how to do this and how to do that, how to work online. Because again, they've come to me and gone, I don't know what I'm doing. How do I do this? And I'm like, oh, it's really simple. Let's just do this, 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 and this. And they're like, okay. And then over the last year or so, I've focused it down into helping people with memberships and courses, because obviously lots of people had their businesses wiped out when COVID hit earlier in the year. And I was like, right, okay, you need to pivot. You need to change things quite quickly. You need to get some stability. You need some recurring income. Because lots of people who work for themselves, lots of people who are coaches or tutors or experts, they're chasing one-off transactions. Once they've worked with somebody for a while, it's off, and you're constantly trying to get people in the front end of that funnel.
It's a full-on hamster wheel all the time.
Yeah, constantly. And when you work for yourself, you don't have a department that's dealing with your business development and generating those leads and things for you.
Yeah, you've got to be fulfilling the work, but you've also got to be constantly picking up the pipeline, and that's so time consuming.
So you end up seesawing. So you don't have consistency in terms of your income, because you're either developing or delivering, and when you're delivering, the other one's not working, and so it does this. So it's a bit of a whirlwind, and plus people are not necessarily doing enough or can't scale what they're doing because they're coaching one-to-one, they're coaching a couple of people. So it's like, look, the most obvious, easiest way for you to generate recurring income, teaching what you love, because again, that's one of the things that I want people to do, is do the work that they love, do the work that they are meant to be doing. Don't waste your time in a job that you can't bear just because it pays the bills. Is to set up membership sites, to set up programs where you're working with people on an ongoing basis, so that you have recurring income, residual income coming in, so you have that stability to work from. You can then do group programs, you can then do one-to-one coaching or whatever on top, and that's the icing on the cake, and it's scalable, and it's just beautiful. I love it. It
does work so beautifully, and I am becoming wiser to the ways of these things through you. I've completely flipped my business model now as a result. And in the process of, as you know, and that is incredibly exciting. But for me, one of the things that's really exciting about it is that you are able to not, there's the part of it where you don't have to any longer sell, that your time is your resource. Being a freelancer L&D in my previous version of my business was, that's the only thing I had to sell, really. Yes, I was selling great learning and development, but ultimately I was the resource I had was time, my time, and that's incredibly exhausting and very, very limited and very unstable as a business model. And I now understand that not only can I move beyond that, but also that by coaching multiple people at the same time, I am getting my message out there in a so much more impactful way and making a much bigger difference. And that having those people collectively together, they all make that difference for each other as well. And it dials up the power of that in like times a million, doesn't it? And I think that's incredibly.
As human beings are not supposed to work on our own. It's in our DNA to be part of a community, to be part of a tribe, and everyone plays their little role. And people, that the power of community is incredible, and the collaborations that come out of it and the learning that comes out of it. And just when you work on your own, you feel so lonely and unsupported a lot of the time. To be able to, first of all, by even sort of people that join my membership or join a membership or join a community, it's the first step to them acknowledging that they are worth that investment. It doesn't have to be a massive amount, but a lot of them will struggle with the self-worth and putting them out there and all of this. But that's the first step, is that actually I deserve to be a part of this, and I can be a part of this. And then it just starts to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And the benefits for people, far outweigh actually sell to them. The transformation that people go through, you can't really tell people about it because it's not tangible. It changes them as an individual as well as their business.
Yeah, it really does.
Incredible.
Zoe's saying so many similarities. I'm really struggling with my words today with reading. So many similarities between you and me, Becs. I'm loving helping people learn about the opportunities of online technology. It's all very exciting. Zoe's really very much in a similar world to us as regards to coaching and helping people learn. And we in fact we both worked at O2 together and many years ago. So yeah, we've got a lot of like-mindedness going on here between us all. No, I think that's I really like what you were saying as well about us being in our DNA to work together. And I think that's definitely, you know, one of the things that's been highlighted by this community for me is that it just sort of when people come together, magic happens, doesn't it? And it's so much bigger than the sum of its parts. Oh, we've lost you a bit.
Yeah, and
them.
Yeah, I can feel it. It's going in and out.
Yeah.
I might have to go and see wife Joseph McNeill.
Don't worry.
I'm shouting at the kids.
We keep getting frozen pictures of you, like.
Oh no.
It's all right. You keep coming back to us at the essential moment. I'm going to ask you this question then, Becs. Would you consider yourself to be a rebel?
Not in the traditional sense of the term.
What would be the traditional sense for you?
I'm about. Okay, so somebody that so a rebel for me, I suppose, is somebody that kind of went against the grain and caused a bit of trouble. I don't feel that I caused trouble.
No, you don't. I mean,
too
not
often.
Anyway.
Yeah, and I'm not kind of outrageous by any stretch of the imagination. I feel like I'm a quiet, bad influence to people. I'm kind of like that person on their shoulder that's like, do it, do it, do it. You know, I'm the one egging you on from the side to do naughty. I'm the one that's egging you on to do the naughty thing, and I'll just stand there and watch.
Yeah.
And I suppose because it's always been who I am to kind of do my own thing and follow my own path, I haven't had an awful lot of resistance, so it hasn't felt rebellious. But I understand really then from talking to other people that they're like, oh, that was brave, or oh, that was different, and I'm like, oh, was it? So it wasn't, I wouldn't have necessarily classed myself as a rebel.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because to you that's just normal, but then, you know, some of the things that you've done and decisions you've made would seem quite maverick to people, your husband included. So it is, and Julie Foster said before, it's, you know, she wrote perspective, question mark, and you know, it comes back to that, doesn't it? It depends how you see it and what your frame of reference is. I think one of the things I'm learning about this whole concept of being rebellious is that some of it is about rebelling against your own rules and your own stories and your own kind of conditions that you set for yourself that are no longer empowering, useful, or relevant to you. It's I think it's a really interesting topic in general, because there's that outer rebellion, the inner rebellion as well, isn't there?
Yeah. And I think knowing yourself is really important, and knowing what you're almost capable of, so that you know you can call bullshit on your own stuff. It doesn't require you to wait for somebody else to go, really? You can actually go, hold on a second, did I just say that? And then get back to who you were and who you're supposed to be. So yeah, maybe my rebellion needs to be more about, I don't know, challenging myself maybe a lot more.
Right.
And not being so comfortable, perhaps.
Interesting. Julie's saying stripping back conditioning is huge. Totally agree. That's what I'm about. So what would you say then would be, this is a big question now that I didn't warn you about, it's only just come up in my head. What would you say would
We're not in control of anything.
True. What would you say would be one of the biggest things you've learned this year then, perhaps about yourself maybe?
This year, the biggest thing I've learned about myself is that I am capable of magic.
Hell yeah, you are, girl.
Yeah, and I think I've
very dark times.
Yeah, and will probably continue to, I'm sure. But I did doubt myself for a while. I went through a phase a couple of years back where I kind of burnt out, got a bit worn down, and I completely doubted myself. And this year, and again, I suppose it was that crisis. There was lots going on and people were in a bad way. And I was like, it's okay. Don't worry. Let's go do this. I know this space. I know the chaos, the uncertainty. I'm happy in these waters. I'll steer this ship. So, and I know that I'm, you know, capable of magic in those situations. So when I'm starting to feel like I'm kind of losing it or doubting it, I know I need to kind of, that's when I need to throw things up in the air again. Mm-hmm. Just don't tell them that. Yeah.
Zoe's saying, I'm loving this conversation. I am too, Zoe. So what would you, if you got any sort of resources, recommendations, people you admire, things you would refer to sort of in your world that people might find really helpful?
I don't know. I think
a model for you, would you say?
I don't think there's anybody in particular. I think there's people that I admire because of the way they choose to live their lives. So if they choose sort of an unconventional path, I'm like, oh, you did, you know, I just admire those kind of people because they have, you know, something in them driving them to do things differently. So, you know, you'll always find me watching a bit of Ben Fogle Lives in the Wild and things like that. People like that fascinate me. It's more for me is, again, because it's me and my emotions, it's like, what do I feel like at the time? So if I'm feeling like I need to retreat, that's fine, I'll retreat. If I feel like I'm in it and I'm ready to go, I'm ready to go. So sometimes it'll be a case I'll stick Audible on and I'll sit and listen to something. Some of the Ruby Wax books are brilliant, from understanding your mind and all of that kind of thing. Yeah. Another great book is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert.
Yeah,
that's another great book. That's a nice book to read as well. I get a lot of my inspiration from being out and about in nature, and after a glass of wine.
All combined.
Yeah, so put all of it together. Sitting by the beach, reading books with wine. Perfect.
Oh God, that sounds glorious.
I think it's about, it's tapping into what you and tapping into your desire.
Yeah,
I think that we're not very good at doing that anymore. I think we kind of push that aside because we're caught up in obligation. So anything that you are drawn to, just go with it and see where it leads you. Because it might just be a book that takes your fancy, but that might just inspire you to do something, or it might be, you know, a place that inspires you. So anything really that kind of anything that you're kind of getting a pull towards, just follow it. Follow those breadcrumbs, Hansel and Gretel.
I think that's a great tip. And it's that sort of, listen to your body, listen to, you know, this stuff that you're being told, you know, in whatever way that you know comes about. Listen to it. I've definitely learned that more this year. You're talking about people who you admire that just kind of go off and do their own thing. I'm looking forward to my cousin's name coming out of the fishbowl at some point. So Claire French, she's in the group. She lives in New Zealand and she's very much swerved the status quo and just gone about life her own way. She's got a video actually on YouTube. She was part of the tiny house.
Oh my God, I love tiny houses.
Yeah, she built her own little gypsy caravan thing. It's absolutely beautiful. She built another tiny house since then. She just goes where life takes her. She's very, very in tune with her heart.
Oh, I love it.
Had jobs in the circus.
You're joking me. Okay, Claire, I'm coming to find you.
she's amazing. She's had a job working with horses more recently. She's then gone off and she's now doing a project with house building. I think South Island. I think is the area she's in, and she's just amazing. I will have to connect you actually, because I think we probably get on really well. But she's just totally booked all the rules and gone, this is me. And she went away and just did her own thing, and she's a massive inspiration to me.
Yes, those are the kind of people that I love. And the tiny house thing, I think that comes back to my wandering soul. Is I've always wanted to live in a camper van. I'm going to be like the little old lady in the van. And it's like, well, because I know then that I could just go wherever I wanted to. Yeah. I would just pitch up, and if I want to stay here, I'll stay here. And if I want to go, I'll go. And that appeals to me massively. And I think that's why sometimes I find it very hard, because I'm, in a house with bringing up children, and we don't necessarily have the freedom that I crave, because we are in a system. That those are the other people that I admire that take their kids out of the school system and do things their own way, because I think that is very broken.
Yeah,
there's a lot of work we need to do there.
Oh, so much work. God, we could do a whole hour on that, or several. I imagine.
Yeah.
We'll do at some point. I'm going to connect you two up. I'm going to probably also post a link actually for the the tiny house video for Claire, the documentary episode that she was in.
Yes.
I'll post it in this thread because I think people would love it. It's so gorgeous, this little home she built. And she's built 2 or 3 now, I think. Amazing.
Yes, anything to do with adventure and experiences, I'm all over that. That's me down to a T. Love it.
So where can people find you, Becs, if they want to find out more about you?
Here on Facebook, really. I tend to hang out a lot on here because that's where my membership guys are. That's where I do a lot of my work. So people always laugh and go, "You're always on Facebook." I'm like, yeah, but I make money from it. Do you?
I'm getting that as well. I had a message from a friend the other day that says, "Bloody hell, you're everywhere I look." I'm like, good.
It's infiltrating everywhere like a bad smell. No, just come and connect with me on here on Facebook. I'm open to accepting all sorts of weird and wonderful people. I'm not one of those people. When I first used to train people in using social media, they're like, "But if I don't know them, I don't connect to them." And I'm like, "But that's what? That's not the point. If you're going to network, you need to be able to talk to people." And a lot of that comes down to the conditioning as kids, is you don't talk to strangers. And it's like, that's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Do you know, it's making me think, because on LinkedIn I'll connect to and I'll accept almost any request. But on Facebook I'm like, oh no, I don't know if you know any of the people I know. Oh, but I need to change that. Because you can always.
That's because you're seeing it. Yeah. Because you're considering LinkedIn is work, Facebook is personal.
Yeah. It's definitely coming more over to Facebook now. So, and you're teaching me that, so that's good.
Just be who you are wherever you be.
Oh, that is like a tagline for this group. Be who you are wherever you be. Oh, I love that. I'm going to steal it.
You can have that. I'll invoice you later.
Thanks, God. Becs, thank you so much. This has been even more magical than I expected, which I sort of also expected. Thank you very much, people. Go check out Becs. If you want to do one of these conversations yourself, please let me know and we'll put your name in the fishbowl lottery thingy. Go have a great weekend. And Becs, I'll send you a private link to this that nobody else will have, so you can keep it your records.
Oh, I like it.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. And why did you have to look so glamorous today?
Oh, I'm sorry. See, I take this off and all of a sudden it dials back down to normal again. Look, you see, normal. It's
with the red lippy.
Where its collar will do.
And the lippy. Can't go wrong with a bit of lippy.
Thank you, darling.
Pleasure.
Bye. Bye.